Here's your bell ringer for Thursday, November 4th. Write 2x minus 3 times 4x plus 8 in ax squared plus bx plus c format. Find the value of 2a minus 3b plus 4c. So the first thing you want to do is multiply those two binomials together. You can do a 2 by 2 box or however you prefer. And once you do that, you'll have a quadratic. And make sure your quadratic's in the standard form. And you'll have a, b, and c to plug into 2a minus 3b plus 4c to find the value of that. Okay, our objective for today, we're going to find the zeros of a quadratic function when a equals 1. And so we're going to do this by factoring. And so, what are zeros? If you remember back in the first 9 weeks, the zeros are where your function crosses the x-axis. So here and here. This is the inputs that make your output equal 0. So on these 2 points, y equals 0. Okay, example 1, you have a function f of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. So I want to find what are the x values that will make my output of this function 0. And so we're going to do a factoring method to find the zeros when a equals 1. A is this number out front, it's 1, but you just don't see it, but it's 1. And so what we're going to do is we're going to split this up into 2 factors. And we'll always start this out, whatever the variable is, most of the time it's x. X squared is x times x, so that'll be the way I start out most of these. If the variable's x, if the variable's a, it'd be a times a. Okay, and then we're going to find factors of c. Factors of c. What times what would equal c, or 8, that add to b. So what times what gives me 8? You got a couple of options. And then take those numbers, and they have to add to 6. And so c is positive. If c is positive, it's either going to be a plus plus or a minus minus. Because a positive times a positive gives you a positive. Also a negative times a negative gives you a positive. So if b is positive, then these are going to be plus plus. And my factors of 8 are going to be 4 and 2. 4 times 2 gives me 8. 4 plus 2 gives me 6. And now I have it factored. So if one of these factors equals 0, the whole thing equals 0. So I need to figure out what would make both of those factors, x plus 4 and x plus 2, equal 0. So just look at the individual parentheses. So what would make that 0? What would x have to be? And so if you said x plus 4 equals 0, throw the 4, x is negative 4, would make that factor 0. Same thing on the other one. If you said x plus 2 equal to 0, throw the 2. If x is negative 2, that would make my second factor 0. So these are my zeros of the function. And you can verify all of your answers. You can verify your factors, x plus 4 times x plus 2. If you multiply x plus 4 times x plus 2, you're going to get this back. If you did a 2 by 2 box, you'd get that back. And you can verify your answers. If I check -4 into my original function, I need to get 0 back. And I also need to check -2. If I plug in a -2, I need to get 0 back. So let's verify those and see. If I plug in a -4 into my original function, I need to get 0. So -4 squared is positive 16. 6 times -4 is -24. And I add the 8. That equals 0. Also, if you plug in a -2, square it, plus 6 times -2 plus 8. -2 squared is positive 4. -12 plus 8. That also gives me 0. So I know these are the zeros of the function. All right, example 2. You have the function x squared minus 6x plus 8. So we want to find the zeros. Our output needs to be 0. All right, let's factor. And x times x will give me the x squared. I need to find factors of a positive 8 that give me a -6. So if c is positive, it's either going to be plus plus or minus minus. In this case, it's going to be minus minus because b is negative. And so my factors are -4 and -2. Now, what would make both of these factors equal 0? The first one, if x is positive 4, so x would equal 4 to make that factor equal 0. And in this one, x would have to be positive 2 to make that one equal 0. So these are my two zeros. You can verify that. Make sure you're right. Okay, 2 more examples. Let's look at example 3, the function x squared plus 7x minus 8. Let's find the zeros. So let's go ahead and factor. Our two factors start out x and x. And if you'll notice, c is negative on this one. And so to multiply two numbers to get a negative, it would have to be a plus and a minus. So anytime c is negative, it'll be plus minus. We're still finding factors of 8 that I could add together to get a 7. And so either 8 and 1 or 4 and 2. And it's going to be 8 and 1. But one of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. In this case, it'll be x plus 8, x minus 1 to add to be positive 7. Set your factors equal to 0 and solve. You'll get x equals -8 and x equals 1. Okay, and then example 4. Find the zeros of this quadratic, and we know it's a quadratic because my highest exponent of x is 2. I just need to get it in standard form. Let's get y by itself. So I'm going to take this -y and make it positive. Take 2x over here. So I have positive y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. So let's find the zeros of this. C is negative, so I know it's plus minus. Factors of 3 are going to be 3 and 1, and we need to make sure we get 3 and 1 in the right place. 3 has to be negative, and 1 has to be positive in order to add together to get a -2 back. Set your factors equal to 0 and solve. We'll get x equals -1 and x equals 3. Okay, here are the 12 problems I want you to do. I want you to find the zeros on all 12 of these. You'll factor these, and from the factors you'll find your zeros. And on number 12, I want you to graph, once you find the zeros on that, I want you to graph number 12 on graph paper. And I want you to include everything that we did on the previous videos. I want you to include the y-intercept, include the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and your two zeros on your graph. And there is one question on this that will not factor, and so when you find that one, just write will not factor on it, and that's all you need to put on that one. All right.